Yeah, we
Okay. So first thing we're going to do, my name's George, last name's Moskoff. I'm going to talk to you about how to create a mobile app today. Thanks all of you for coming. As I said, my name's George. This is going to be free-flowing, so questions are welcome anytime. This is a very complicated subject, and from the big picture view, in my view, we've only scratched the surface. There's 1 million apps in the iTunes store right now. They just passed the 1 million mark about a month ago. And we're really only scratching the surface of what these things can really do for us. Maps, email, it's not real, it's not rocket science yet. So I think the future for mobile apps, in whatever form they come, whether they're native or they're hybrids, I think the future for mobile apps is very bright because these machines can do just a tremendous amount for us in terms of managing lifestyles, managing disease states. I was just on a conference call yesterday with a company that uses it for online substance abuse recovery. So the individual checks in and says, yeah, I went to lunch, here's what I bought, takes a picture of it. I went to the grocery store, they take a picture of what's in the cart, and all of a sudden they have an accountability and a validation that you can't get in any other form. So we're starting to see all kinds of ways that these things can be used. But how to create one is tricky. I've created 2, and it's still tricky. And we've just done upgrades on them too, so I'm happy with that. So the first question that you really need to ask is, how are you going to frame the app? Are people going to, and I'm going to go over some slides from last time because nobody who was here, except for Tom, was here last time. So I'm going to go over part 1 real quick, and then we'll get into part 2. So the first question is, are people going to buy your app? Are you going to use advertising to pay for the use of the app? Or am I going to become part of the surveillance economy? Because that's essentially what Google's business is. They're in the surveillance economy, they're selling my data. They're looking at what I'm doing, and they're selling it. And they're selling it for big money. I myself, my apps are native apps. They're completely private. As it should be with these apps because they're sort of sensitive and intimate, and that's the business model that I've used. I have on my light versions, which I think you have to have for every app. On my light versions, there's advertising, but I think I've garnered maybe 6 cents worth of advertising from iAd in the past 6 months. So that's the first question, I think, that needs to be answered. I'm going to show you some apps that come from big companies, and I'm going to talk to you about relative freshness, because shelf life does have an impact on how the app gets viewed in the marketplace. So here we have an app from Amgen. Anybody want to guess last time it was updated? December of 2012. So it's 13 months old already. That's too old. Way too old in this business. Here's another one on, I think this one is on managing diabetes, might be. And that was June 2011. So it's probably not even being used anymore. When you look at those 1 million apps that are in the iTunes store, my guess is that about 50% of them are not getting purchased by anyone. And so it's incumbent upon the developer to really promote the app and get it out there, whether it's, I get sick of hearing about Angry Birds and whatever else is out there, whatever my kids download to my iPad. Something death, megapixel death or something, I can't remember. Here's another one that January 2012, a Medtronic app. It's a very simple app, but I don't think you can have them sit there that long and expect that anybody's going to use them.
Do these dates mean they haven't, not only have they not had a new app, but they haven't updated the app?
They haven't updated the app.
Period.
They haven't updated the app. They haven't updated it to iOS 7, which is a major update that you got to do because all of the icons and the configurations changed, which we had to do on our apps, unless it's all proprietary. A little bit about my story. The first app I developed, I had a tech startup. I was a tenant here too. And I was going to develop mobile apps with a social benefit. The first one I developed was called I Split Divorce. And it came out of a very innovative process that I used when my ex-wife and I were divorcing. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if we could put this in an app? And there's an app for that. And we just got a big endorsement in a book from a celebrity divorce attorney named Laura Wasser down in Hollywood. Actually, she's in Century City. But the app, she says, I love this app, and you have to use it to start the conversation. So we get a little bit of endorsement once in a while. It's not, it's a very niche app, and it's way ahead of its time. So I sit on it knowing that that's going to be the way it's going to be for a while. And then I put out an ad for mobile app developers on Craigslist, and this 17-year-old kid from Forestville came along, and I decided that I would have him develop the next app, which he's done a beautiful job at. Because it's really funny. The funny story I told him just a couple of months ago is, Eric, you know, you didn't know anything about building apps, you didn't know much, and I've had these professionals from India, Romania, California, some of the best guys in California. And the app, the I Split Divorce app, crashes. You can do something and it'll crash. But Eric's app, which is very sophisticated too, never crashes. And it's just so funny to me that you can have all these professionals and they're missing things. So the user does something and tries to save it, can't save it, app crashes. But this 17-year-old kid builds an app that doesn't crash. So there's a lot of funny ways to do this. And I've gotten some press for this. Press Democrats done a couple of things. And these are just some screenshots from the Kids Self-Evaluate app. And both of these have what I call social benefit. So we're going to talk about design and concept. First thing you need to know is who's your market and why are you going to develop an app. There has to be decisions as you're in the design process about how you're going to communicate both the development of the app and how you're going to tell others about what you're trying to do. The easiest way to do that is with prototyping, and I'm going to show you some examples of that. Prototyping mock-ups. The guy I work with in Romania, who's my main guy now, his name's Marian Brostein, and he's hiring people because they're $50 an hour versus $125 an hour here. But you go to India, it's 10 to 20, and you're getting what you're paid for. Marion's a good guy, and Marion's a partner now. So, and then there's also flowcharting and mind mapping, which are helpful in the process of designing the app and how you want it to work. So here's an example of one. This is called Opieop, and this allows you to do flowcharting. And that's one example of a way to start developing the app. So you press this, it goes there. You swipe this, it does that. You shake it, and it does that. By far the most sophisticated system that I've used is called Keynote Opieop. And what this allows you to do is essentially create workable prototypes in Keynote or PowerPoint so that when you press a button on the device, it will take you to a selected page. So it gives the impression of a working app. It'll run on Keynote, Microsoft PowerPoint, and one other system. And I actually met the guy that developed it.
So it's like an overlay for the other apps. It actually looks like an app.
It looks like an app. And yeah, and you develop prototypes that, and then you get it to run on the, you use PowerPoint. I use, this is Keynote. You use Keynote on the iPhone, and you press the button and it takes you to a page. It's essentially like playing a slideshow, but the buttons can be actuated. They'll have all sorts of prototypes that they provide you, so they've got templates that you can purchase. It's not that much money. Here's another one called Fluid UI, and this allows you to do mock-ups. And if you don't want to go any of those routes, there are companies that are selling for under $700, $800. They're selling templates. So all you have to do is load. If you're a restaurant company, you spend $800. You load your menu into the template, and they take care of getting the app into the iTunes store, maintaining it, providing tech support, and it's a relatively small investment. In terms of your market, questions we want to ask is who are they, why would they want to buy an app, how are you going to get to them, how much would that cost. For example, I just sent out an email blast. I just got a notification. I use a program called Direct Mail that runs on the Mac platform. And since we made some upgrades to our apps, I just sent out an email blast to whom? I think it was to guidance counselors in probably Texas, Illinois, and wherever else. But it speaks to the constant promotion that you've got to do. So how are you going to get to them? How much is that going to cost? What's the potential return, and when? Now, one of the questions that keeps coming up for me is one of my apps, the divorce app, is really an asset that could be used by companies that are in the legal business, like LegalZoom or Nolo or Rocket Lawyer, and it's only going to be a matter of time until they want to start developing mobile apps. So I look at the investment I'm doing in that as a potential investment in them getting interested in white labeling, either white labeling the product and putting their name and logos on it, or buying the thing. So that's another way to look at this. It isn't just that you've got to make money on the sale of the app. And the other thing you want out of your business plan is some exit strategies. What are you going to do with it? Like, my dream is that LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer or Nolo, who I can't get interested in this, come to me someday and say, we've got to have your app. Okay, so business plan. Next thing we need to pick is a platform. Okay, so here are all the ways that we can develop an app now. And this wasn't this way just 2 years ago. So we've got native, which is like my apps, everything sits on the device. We've got hybrid, where some of the intelligence sits on the device and some of it sits on the web. So, my Amazon app, my Google Maps app, these are all hybrids. Okay? So, this is the portal to information that's in the cloud. Another way to design is responsive web design. Now this is a pretty cool thing. Essentially, what it does is it recognizes, the technology recognizes the size of the screen, and it compresses the content to fit the screen. So it might drop off 3 or 4 menu items that you say you want to drop off when the screen gets to 10 inches. It may drop off 5 menu items when the screen gets to be 4 inches. Okay? So this is probably the most expensive way to go right now. But it's the most comprehensive.
Why?
Because there aren't a lot of people who know how to do it. It's very time consuming in terms of coding. But you end up with one product that will serve your desktop users, your iPad users, your Android users, your iPhone users, your Surface users. It's everybody.
It's really an extension of web development. It's not necessarily app development.
That's right.
And it's different from PhoneGap, which is Adobe's new product. And Adobe allows you to develop in the HTML world, CSS, HTML, and they wrap the thing that you've created so it doesn't look like a website. I don't know exactly how you download the app, or if you download an app, or if you download a bookmark, or whatever it looks like. But Adobe has a product that, if you go to PhoneGap.com, or I can't remember what it is, it might be PhoneGap.com. If you look at their video, they show you how the product works. And what it allows you to do then is get access, from a development standpoint, gets access to HTML developers. And there's a lot of those out there, as opposed to these guys. And it's not the Wild West. This is, for a lot of stuff, this is the Wild West. There are some big mobile app development firms that are out there, and if you go to firms that have operations, let's say in Bangalore, India, you're going to be okay, because that's like Silicon Valley in India. But if you go to some local guys, freelance guys, you can check their references, you can look at other apps that they've done, but you have no guarantee that they're going to pull through for you. Yes?
When you say HTML, you mean HTML5 JavaScript?
Yes. Okay, so there are decisions to be made about platforms, and money enters into part of the equation. And I can give you a rough idea. I haven't filled out the whole grid, but I'll send you the PDF. You can fill out the grid for yourself, what works for you. And I can refer you to people who can do responsive web design and other things. Another design, this is the PhoneGap website. So you write your HTML, you wrap it with PhoneGap, and then you deploy to mobile platforms. They make it fairly simple. And if I were Adobe, this would be a good idea, because Dreamweaver isn't getting used much. So it allows me to extend the life of a product I've invested a lot of money in. Because there's a lot of websites. What are there? 75 million. How many? 75 million new websites a month, something like that. And a lot of people are using like WordPress and Drupal and all kinds of other applications. Finding programmers. This is not rocket science, but again, you're going to want to cover your bases. Any questions? I'm gonna just pause you for a minute. So I have found guys through a variety of sources. I found them through Craigslist. As I said, I found Eric through Craigslist. Freelancer.com. There's another one called Elance that will get you to mobile app developers. This is Elance's website. They say they have 27,900 mobile developers. I doubt they certify any of them. So it's really it's really incumbent upon you to do an effective job of vetting any mobile app developer that you might consider hiring. And I don't know if I'm going to mention this later, somewhere later, but you might even consider hiring a team. One who's senior. I got a guy in Santa Cruz named Ted, who comes from the programming world and came into mobile app development probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. And the guy's just meticulous, but he's $125 an hour. So it's entirely possible that I can have Eric do stuff at $30 an hour and have Ted look it over and just pay him the fee to look it over and make sure it's consistent with what's needed. So also along on finding programmers, any good business decision you're going to make, I want to check references, I want to look at other projects, I want to figure out the skill set that's needed. Also, if you're really lucky, you get some programmers that are really good at communications. For the most part, they're not.
This is true.
So that's why you want to be able to nail down what the app design looks like, because you don't want the misunderstandings that are going to come. Oh, well, I didn't know you wanted it that way. And that's why the prototyping is really important too, because in the prototyping, well, I didn't talk about this, in the prototyping, what you're doing is you're going out to family and friends and you're giving them your phone and saying, play with this for me and tell me what you don't like and what you do like and what you would change. Because you're getting input into the design of the app, and you really need to get out of your own head in order to get some good advice. There are mobile app developers. Ted is not one of them. There are mobile app developers that are very good at design, at graphics, at layout, at sequencing, and making it flow. There are some of those out there, and if you get one, you got lucky. Marion's pretty good at that. Marion's got business background. He used to work for Microsoft, and he was really helpful to me. And when I strayed away from him because I got pissed at him once, when I strayed away from him, it was a big mistake. I paid for it. I paid for it handsomely.
So what you're also saying, though, is think out your development environment. Where does the code go? How do you get sequence people to it? How do you control their access?
Right. And you're going to end up being a mobile app developer. You're going to, I don't know what it is in the Android world, but in the Apple world, it's Xcode. You're going to need a copy of Xcode. You're going to have to learn how to get the app onto the iTunes Store and those other things. Your developers will do that for you too, but you need to be familiar with that. Programming the app. This is a very careful thing. You need to allow at least 30 to 60 days for any decent app. More like 60 to 90. So you need to have milestones that are in place that the programmer and you are going to meet. There's going to be stuff that you have to do. You're going to be writing all of the copy, the text. In my apps, I have debriefers, I have stuff that's shared. And I need it to be on time from my standpoint so that Marion or Eric could put it into the app at the appropriate time they were building it. And also the testing.
The 60 to 90 day figure, does that multiply out to sort of a feeling you have for number of paid hours that you find is a range for
If you
a
went
developer?
to the South Bay and you went to one of these firms that's selling itself as a mobile app developer, and they've got a few people here, they're doing most of their production in India, they got designers here, they've got sales guys here, they've got client management guys here, and that's about it for here.
Mhm.
You're going to spend about $25,000 on a decent app.
Right. And your experience when you do it your way is what kind of price range?
6 to 10. But I don't know, but I'm assuming I have a lot more headaches.
Probably. I would hope that multiplier gives you some benefit.
Not sure from my experience.
Yeah, I mean,
And I've used two firms that have production in India. I've used 2 guys in California. I was being sold by a guy in Michigan who said he was the best.
so you have some direct experience with both models. Is it your opinion you do get some added value if you're going to pay the high dollars? That it becomes a little more hands-off, a little more seamless, or is it a pain in the butt still?
Eric had problems submitting the app to Apple, and Marion couldn't help us, so I had to pay some guys in India to get the app into the store, and also to fix in-app purchases. Whenever you have an add-on inside the app that you want the user to purchase, you know, get this evaluation for 99 cents more, that's called an in-app purchase. Very complicated, really complicated. And not everybody gets it the first time, not everybody gets it the second time. I mean, it requires a level of expertise. And you know, that grid I showed you where the native app developers, it's a very small supply. But I had to go to these guys in India to get it into the store. I had to pay like $1,000, whereas...
So do you think these firms in the South Bay that supposedly they tell you, of course, that they got it all down, do they really?
I think they do.
Okay.
Because if you look at some of their apps, they're sophisticated apps. They're apps that are using APIs from websites. They're pulling data in from all sorts of places. So it's a hybrid, and those are really sophisticated. And you will find individual developers too, like a guy comes to mind that I looked at. His name's Dimitri Miller. He's pretty much occupied with one client that's a financial services provider. And what they do is they use the app to sell their services. But he's pulling data from Dow Jones, he's pulling data from their accounts at Ameriprise and their accounts at Charles Schwab and other places. So this guy's pretty sharp. So common sense, make sure you've got the talent for the job. Might not hurt to have 2 developers if you think that one might be a good consultant. And you want to have your software development kit, you want to have that embedded in the app so that you can monitor your crashes. Otherwise, you don't know what's going on, you're flying blind. And sometimes what Marion taught me is that you have to respect the guys at Apple because they're experts in their own light, the guys that are reviewing these apps. You have to respect the guys at Apple and write a note to them when you submit your app, when you submit your build, to tell them that you're incorporating this SDK so that you can monitor crashes, but you're not collecting any personal information because Apple is what's the word? They're ridiculous about keeping personal information on the device. They've been
The
hammered
word is
so hard.
notorious.
Huh?
I said the word is notorious.
No, they're scrupulous.
It's okay.
They don't want your app pulling personal data off of the user's machine. They're not gonna be happy with that.
So they look for that as part of the submission process.
They do.